stand here. I don't like to stand behind podiums very often. But the Watermen's Museum, if you've not been there in the last many years, you need to come. It's changed completely. I started back there in 2009 with Mr. Niebuhr, who's now gone on to New Orleans to work for Audubon. But I started as the director of education, and we turned the whole thing upside down. From small historic house museum, we now offer programming for K-12 environmental science, K-12 social studies. We now have over 6,000 school children coming through the museum every year. Wow. Serving Gloucester and Newport News and York and James City County. And, far, far away. Folks are traveling to see us, because it shows that I guess we're doing pretty good. Right? We're also trying to expand out and involve as many people as possible. We are a small, tiny museum with a big piece of very good property on the York River. But the idea is that we want to make use of that property. So like with the Cardboard Boat Regatta, we're trying to partner with everybody we can to make use of our facilities and to show people what the York River is like. So we also are, if you like music, we have the Folk Jam every second Wednesday, open sessions. Actually, that's tonight, actually. They're going on since 2009. So we have 45 people showing up to sing music. And that carries on into the summer season. We're going to do concerts every Friday night, starting in May, all through the summer, and special events. We have the York River Symphony playing on site, and local bands. Try to get local musicians a chance to pop up on stage and perform. So music all the time. And if you like dance, third Monday, the Regional Swing Dance Club meets at the Watermen's Museum. Used to meet at William and Mary until they lost their space. And for the last 3 years, they've been working with us down at the Watermen's Museum. If you like stories, we've partnered with the Yorktown Storytellers Guild, the Weavers of the Word group, and we're doing the Story Slam every fourth Monday of the month, now for over a year ongoing. So activities, things going on. And we're trying very hard to pull everybody together in the region. So as a small, nonprofit museum, we can step forward, we can talk to York County and Gloucester County. I can travel across the bridge, and because those counties don't talk to each other. And neither one of them talks to James City County. Who doesn't talk to New Kent. So there's a mix-up there somehow. So as a small nonprofit, we're jumping in to push regional cooperative planning and programming. And so, yeah, I can bring them all to the table at the same time without any fighting going on. Big projects is what we're pushing. In the immediate, the museum has received a grant from the National Park Service, the American Battlefield Preservation Group. We are reconducting the survey of the 40-plus ships from 1781 that are sitting right there off of Yorktown and Gloucester. It's a National Historic Register site as of 1973. It was the first underwater National Historic Site. But no one's done much work on it since the 70s and early 80s. So now we've come back. We're going to survey all 40 ships, and survey the whole area, and see what's there. And then hopefully reapply that grant, which I'm now writing for the next couple of years, and get folks in the water and actually study what's under the surface of the sill. Still sitting there, so that's ongoing. The big point being, we want to find the ships that are there, and also find the ships that are not there. Large sections of that National Historic Site may not have anything sitting there. If there's nothing to protect in the water, we want to bring the watermen in and expand that shellfish aquaculture industry a little further. Because part of the history at the York River is not just this colonial and the early history, it's also the current history, the watermen that are working on the water. We want folks to see people out there working. And extend it further, we want to talk about where we're going to next in the future of the bay and the river itself. So we're trying to push all those connections out there. Going with that, to get folks out to the river, we have started to push the state designation. We want to declare the York River historic and scenic. And we've done the evaluation with DCR, and they've approved it with flying colors. And York County and Gloucester County have both approved the resolutions accepting that evaluation, And now we're pushing it forward to General Assembly in January. Mr. Norman's going to take it to the Senate. Mr. Hodges will take it to the House for us. And it will be declared the first river in Virginia to be declared historic and scenic. The first estuary river on the historic designation, a scenic designation. Now, the first section is going to be York County and Gloucester County. And James City County is sitting back and watching to see what York does. So in the future, we'll expand that further to include the river that's on James City County and New Kent and King and Queen and West Point. That's down the road. But right now, January, legislation pushing forward in the General Assembly. By June, we should have that declaration and designation finalized.
Will that create any limitations on the use of the river?
It doesn't. That's the amazing part. The State Scenic River designation is a tourism stamp. What is it? It's a branding tool. It allows us to promote the river as historic and scenic. It doesn't affect riparian rights. It doesn't affect actual use. So for that point, it's a win-win for everybody. We want to expand out the eco-tourism market and the heritage tourism market. Get folks on the water, on charter boats, on kayaks, on canoes. There are 7 blue water trails in Gloucester and York County. We want folks on those blue water trails with their kayaks looking at things. Okay. So working very closely with the Watermen's Association of the state, the Waterman Heritage Tour Association as well as everybody we can find. VIMS is on board, and the Coast Guard is on board, and the Weapon Supply Station is on board. So lots of partners on this.
What volume of business do the Watermen do?
The volume of business? The volume has declined in the last many years for several many reasons. Aquaculture is what's growing now. So working with like 6 companies in Gloucester and several in Seaford, we're going to bring those oyster companies in to the picture as well and get them involved in promoting themselves and promoting the product. So we shall see. Hopefully we can expand that some and get more press out there. So that is a great tourism tool, and I've got about 70 partners working with me on that. However, it doesn't provide any real protection for the shipwrecks. It is a National Historic Register site, so there is some state protection there, but there's no actual protection to keep folks from going down on the shipwrecks and pulling stuff up. So the next step beyond that is to take it to the next level. We're working with NOAA to have the shipwreck area declared a Maritime Heritage National Marine Sanctuary. So that's the big process. And that'll actually give us protection for the ships. But at the same time, since we're looking for the area where there are no ships also, the idea with NOAA, they want public visibility. They want public access to all the sites they help manage. So they want people out there, both recreational-wise for fishing and boating, and tourism-wise for tours, but also for the industry to come in place also. Same thing. Once we find those wrecks, we have the National Marine Sanctuary can be brought in, put a little cone around those wrecks, everything else around there, then can be put to licensing through BMRC.
Who owns the ships at this point?
That's a big question. We just found out, actually, like last month. We finally got a declaration from the state. Now, they were British ships,
Right.
sunk in 1781. International law says all foreign military vessels belong to the country of origin. It's a World War II treaty. So those ships should belong to England still, they being military. At the end of the battle in 1781, we gave all those ships to France. And France spent 2 years trying to raise them. They only got one out of the water, the Guadeloupe. The British had cut the keel on everything else. So they tried to raise them, they just kind of collapsed and fell back in. So are they French? By signed treaty, could be French. Now, however, it is a National Historic Register sites. So back in 2009, 2010, 2010, legislation was passed giving all ships on the National Historic Register site, all recognized vessels, to the state in which they're in. So the federal government has given the known vessels to the state of Virginia. Still kind of gray though, because they've only recognized 9 of them on the historic register. The digs were done. John Broadwater led the campaign back in from 73 until 85 to look for the shipwrecks. And they looked around the Betsy project primarily. So they found 9 of them down there around the Betsy.
What's the Betsy?
The Betsy's a collier. It's one of the ships that was sunk. And back in the 70s, they put a cofferdam around it. And we're going to pump the water out so you can actually see it. That's the problem with the York River. You can't see past your nose, right? The York River. They studied it and did some really, really incredible research on that. And they found bits and pieces of ships around it in that small quadrant. Now, back in 2012, 2 more ships were uncovered because of the swirling currents caused by the shoreline down there. So now we have 9 on the historic register, 2 more not registered yet. So in theory, those 9 belong to the state of Virginia from the federal government. What about the other 30 that have not been tagged yet? Still kind of in limbo.
How deep is the water at that site?
The main channel of the river is 94 foot deep.
94.
It's a self-scouring river. It is the deepest river on the East Coast. Estuary. Self-scouring estuary. From there, it goes to 30 foot, up to 17 foot, up to 12 foot into the shoreline. So you've got really dramatic shoulders and a big trough.
Is that where all the ships are?
So all the ships should be sitting in that 15-foot depth. Really? The Betsy, Cornwallis Cave, the ships down in that quadrant of Yorktown are in 12 foot of water.
So the quality that's charted on all of the 40-ish ships is not too bad, but not great?
No one's looked for them. No one's found them. But no one's looked for them actively.
So we just know the number, but we don't know where they are.
Right. So we've just done a multi-beam sonar scan with the Navy. We've done 2 runs on the 20-foot section, and they found 17 obvious articles that need to be explored. That's just surface stuff sticking out of the mud. So below the mud, we have to go to magnetometer and much, much heavier sonar type work, which we're working on with NOAA right now with the monitor crew. That's coming up this winter. And that means we also have to side scan the sonar and do the shoulders of that. Because the shoreline that's 12 foot deep, the boat couldn't go into because of the sonar drop. So we need to do side scan sonar on the other parts still.
Is there remains down there?
There are obvious remains that from the Cornwallis and the Betsy site are still sitting there exposed. So we know where they are.
So these are grave sites as well.
Well, they sank the ships, took everything off of them, and sank them. So the ships on the shoreline aren't grave sites.
Okay, that's what I mean. There's no dead people down there.
Ships that could have dead people on them were on the Gloucester side. Because when Cornwallis put his 40 ships, he sank them in the shallow water to make an obstruction.
Right.
They thought the Marines were coming from the French ships. So they had 5 large ships still sitting there. The Guadeloupe and the Charne were the big warships, and they also had 3 transports that didn't sink. Of course, as soon as we got there with our artillery, we bombarded the British ships, and the Charne caught on fire and sank with all hands. That's up to 600 people sank with that one.
Wow.
The Guadeloupe was caught on fire and sunk. The Foley was caught on fire and sunk. So there are crews on those vessels potentially.
Wow.
They did find the Charne back in the 30s. Mariners Museum did a great job doing archaeology in the 30s. Of course, in the 30s, archaeology was a dredge. They brought stuff up with heavy equipment. That's still sitting there, though. So we need to go back and find that as well. So I have a lot of stuff for me to do in the near future.
You're going to teach a course this year at Christopher Wren?
Christopher Wren, we're going to teach a course at the Watermen's Museum in the spring. And by then, we'll have a lot of information available. We can talk about the whole battlefield plan, and what's in the water we found, and where we're going beyond that. So I have the next month to finish my COCOA battlefield analysis of the site and get my paperwork back into the National Park Service. And by June, I'd have it all wrapped up, ready for the next segment. We're going to start having people in the water in January.
It's cold in the water.
It's cold, but the water's clear. The month of January and February, the York Rivers, you can see the bottom. The water's clear. So we're going to have teams in the water come January doing geo-referencing on the known shipwrecks and the known spots. And then expand that dive team out further when we get the next level grant.
Why is water clear in January and not in June?
It's the amount of sediment in the water.
Caused by what?
Rain, the sediment's flowing downstream. So all that erosion and wash upstream of the York, the Mattapan, the Pamunkey, that's all washing down.
And it freezes and it doesn't come out.
So as the water gets colder, there's less sediment trapped in the water. That sediment falls out. When the water's warmer, it carries more stuff. Yeah. Now, you gotta be careful because one day it can be cloudy, next day it's clear. Depends on the amount of rainfall coming, washing down out of the creeks and streams. So we're gonna try it though, go for it. So big stuff to do. And what we're trying to do is find as many partners as possible. The National Marine Sanctuary project I'm working on is a large 25-page document that talks about why this is important for preservation purposes, education purposes, and how different folks can use the site once it's been declared a marine sanctuary. So we're trying to get as much input as possible to that. So the big executive committee has done the drafting of the document. Now we're going out to everybody we can find, asking for further input. So we'd like the Rotary Club to think about helping out with that in the education area. So we've broken up the folks into different groups: education and natural resources and historic resources and tourism. We're asking those specialists and interested active people to comment also. So I dropped off that information there for you to look at. And that way we can get input from all angles of the community, all aspects of life.
We have time for one more quick question for Mike, if anybody has one more.
Where are these wrecks located exactly?
They are just off the shoreline, starting at Wormley Creek, going up to Yorktown Creek, which is the museum property. On the Gloucester side, they start at the Vintage property and go around the point down to Saris Creek. So that's the known area where the ships are based off the maps from the colonial period. So we're doing the shoreline survey to see where the shoreline has gone. BIMS has that information for us. We're comparing erosion and shoreline movement from colonial up to the Civil War and the present. That'll tell us possibly where the ships might be today. That's the COCOA analysis. And the military analysis of where things should be based off known data and facts. So that'll tell us where we can get those teams in the water to do much more work. And from the sonar work will tell us what things are sticking up out of the water. Magnetometer shows all the metallic stuff in the sediment up to 3 4 foot down. If we can get our big sonar penetrating sonar on board the ship and do the through water into the ground penetrating sonar as well, working on that, that'll give us like 6 to 10 foot penetration below the mud surface. We'll be able to see what's sitting there.
That's awesome.
Fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. It is the tradition of our club to honor your visit in 2 ways. Number one is we provide you a certificate suitable for framing, as we like to say. I think it's better in a family picture above the mantle, personally. And then also, we donate a book with your name in it to the local library.
Excellent.
So kids will be able to check this out, and it'll have a name plaque. It doesn't right now, but you have to take my word for it, with your name in honor of your visit here.
Very
so
good.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. And we need to do a quick PR check. I'm sure you know how that goes. Awesome.
Excellent.
And then we have one job for you.
Yes.
We need you to pull a ticket.
read the last three